You don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make a meaningful impact on others. There's a lot of ways to go from A to B. For me, it came with a little bit of age. I had to look back and see how my dots were connecting, and those are the people around me. The second thing is, even though the subtitle of the book is 12 principles, and they're my principles, the motivation of the book is to inspire others to make their own set of principles. Everything in the book, it has my name on it, but that book is a reflection of the good people in the world who took a chance on me, who taught me something. They left a trail for me to lead. And I adapted what they had taught me to my own set of principles. And that's the motivation of the book, is just to get curious about how you best operate, what your strengths are, what lights you up, and design your life around that.
Hello, and welcome to episode 181 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts and strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we'll air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform. Leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me and help other people find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. Michael Thompson grew up painfully shy with a debilitating stutter. Despite still being shy at times, still stuttering today, he's a career coach, leadership lecturer for master's students in Barcelona, Spain, and a strategic communication advisor to top business leaders around the globe. Michael is the author of Shy by Design, 12 Timeless Principles to Quietly Stand Out, and his work has been featured in dozens of mainstream publications, including Business Insider, Fast Company, Apple News, Oprah Magazine, and the blog of Stephen Pressfield. All right. Well, welcome to the Quiet and Strong podcast, Michael. Michael, so good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, David. It's been a real thrill and getting to know you over the last couple of weeks.
Absolutely. I love your book, and we're going to get into that. But before we do, let's just talk about you. Tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are now.
So I grew up shy with a severe stutter, and I went through high school, college, just kind of keeping to myself, scared to put myself out into the world. And after college, a few of my friends were out doing things in the world, and I got pretty jealous of that. So I kind of had a moment of reckoning where I was like, I need to do something now to get over my fear of speaking up, putting myself out into the world. So I did the thing that I didn't want to do most, is I pursued a job in sales. And for the first 90 days of that job, they went as expected, and I got hung up on, felt like a fool. But after that 3-month marker, I started to kind of step into my own with it. And within a year, I was promoted to sales manager. I was a corporate trainer for 6 years after that. And I gained a ton of confidence. And like most sane people, I took that confidence and the cash I had made, and I went down to Central America in hopes to flip properties. That started well. It was a cool idea for a 28-year-old until the 2008 crisis hit, and my business partner's dad changed the deeds of the properties, and he sold them out from under me. So the day I was expecting the sale of a house, I got a call saying the money's not coming. And I've been dealing with that for 15 years now. I'm still dealing with that. And so I did what most sane people do, and I went to a bar and stayed there for about 2 years in central Pennsylvania. And I finally, kind of at my wit's end, was like, I need to get out of here. I bought a one-way ticket. I took the $3,000 I had left, and I bought a ticket to Barcelona, Spain. And I took a course to teach English. I love training and coaching, and the teaching reminded me of that. And I met my wife giving a presentation seminar for the Catalan government. 6 months into being in Barcelona, we started a family. I started to do consulting. So I was teaching English originally. That rolled into consulting and coaching for executives and brands. And right around the time that my first son was born, I quit smoking. I couldn't leave the house to play golf for 5 hours like some people do. So I sat down and I began to write. And looking back, I think of it as, wow, I spent 15 years in the sales world, and my voice, my writing, like my voice, how I communicate best is in writing. And I got addicted, and I began to write down all of my stories, the lessons I'd learned. And that kind of led me into where I am now, where half the time that opened doors for me to teach leadership at a university here in Barcelona. I coach executives, I career coach, and I write. So looking back, it all kind of like makes sense. The things I did, sales to teaching, but it took me a while for my dots to officially connect. But I couldn't be happier. It seems like this is like the work I've been meant to do, and I help other people to step into their voice, own their story, and stand confidently in their own skin without sacrificing who they are at their core. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. That is a great story. Let's go back just a little bit. So what was it in your upbringing how did that impact your confidence?
So my dad was in the Air Force, and he's one of those guys that's 6'5" when you close your eyes, but when you open them, he's about 5'10". Just a commanding presence, stoic. My brothers are kind of the same way. Everybody around me, we moved every year or two, so I was always in an army barracks growing up. And the advice there was stand up straight, head back. If you're going to shake somebody's hand, break it. And I was not that at all. So I was the quiet kid in all of my family photos. Like I'm behind my mom's, like my head's peeking out. And so like I always thought that like, and it was reinforced that I had to change who I was. And it took me a long time, like those narratives, over and over again stuck in the back of my head. So I always kind of felt like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't smart enough, surrounded by more alpha types, like not to put anybody in buckets or anything. And that upbringing shaped the way, like the story I told myself. And taking the sales job was kind of like the first time where my eyes opened to the fact that, hey, like maybe I don't have to listen to that stuff.
Yeah. So how did you, it's amazing that you took the sales job. How did you find success in it?
It's amazing that a place hired me, actually. And the sales job, like my first, I want to say the first day or second day, we had to do role plays. And as soon as I heard the word role plays, I freaked out. Like, I'm not getting in front, like you have to practice with a couple of people and then you have to do it in front of the group. And I was close to running out the door. I was like, I am not doing this. And my manager grabbed me. He saw my unease, and he was like, come with me. I'm stealing you. And he threw me in the corner of the office, and just gave me a folder of dead leads, and said, just find your own footing. Here's some scripts, but get hung up on, screw up as much as you can. And I really appreciated that at the time, just because he was like, hey, some people are good at the fast and loud, other are quiet and slow. He appreciated that some need to just figure it out on their own. So that was the first thing. And the 3 months into the job was the holiday party. And they listed off the 10 most successful sales people in the office. And half of it was black, white, young, old, charismatic, quiet. It spanned the gauntlet of human experience. And I was like, oh, wow. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. So that got me through it. My mind, those two things were really instrumental. And a third thing is I went to a sales seminar around the same time as the holiday party. And the keynote speaker said something as he was gathering up his stuff about, he's like, if all else fails, if you can't get someone to talk to you, just start stuttering. They'll see you as a human being instead of a salesperson. And these three things just kind of my mind started to just kind of explode and expand. Wait a second, maybe I do belong here. But my thought process, looking back now, it's hard for me to believe I did, I took the job in the first place. But once I put myself out into the world, I got cues from that I did belong there and I could be good at it. And just listening to those cues instead of 10 negative things would happen in a day, one good thing where my eyes opened, like, and I had just to focus on those good things and build from there.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm just thinking of that supervisor, like he probably didn't say that to everybody. He saw how you needed something different.
It's like I think of leadership. I think of him like that image of him doing that meant the work. Like I was 22, 23 at the time. My friends were all like in jobs, high flying. I had taken a sales job, and my first or second day, I was ready to leave it. Like, and he pulled me aside. Like, it was just like the nicest thing to do. And he would adapt to each individual, which is something that I do now. And the masses followed him because of it. But yeah, like it was a heck of a thing for a guy to do, especially in a fast paced environment, for him to be scanning, kind of observing everybody and thinking that there may be another way for this kid.
Yeah. So, on this show, we talk a lot about introverts and extroverts, and we talk a lot about leadership. And that is one of the keys is really recognizing each person's strengths. We need extroverts and introverts on our teams, and it's a lot of work to understand each member of your team, but it makes a great leader. So that's a great part of your story.
Yeah, like just the observation fact that stuck with me, and it's listening, it's observing. Like it's always a good, like a lot of the world now is so fast paced, like move fast and break stuff. And sometimes it's best just to kind of sit back and move slowly and watch, observe, listen.
Yeah, yeah. So this leads into I'm loving your book, Shy by Design. Tell us a little bit more about that, what inspired you to write it, and just what's the main message of it.
So what inspired me to write it is there's two big reasons. I was writing about the topic a lot for places like Business Insider, for Fast Company, on my own blog. Like, and it felt like it was time for a book to pull it all together. And also my kids, my oldest stutters, and he's shy, he's introvert, he is me cloned as a kid. And I kind of wanted just to write a book that I wanted when I was young, and for him to read when he's of age, just to let him know he's already cool. He can fit is like he's got a good head on his shoulders, like and that the world like it's gonna be okay. Yeah. And the third reason is my dad, like right when I started my book proposal, my dad called me and he said he had cancer. And the book felt pretty trivial, like in the grand scheme of things at the time. This was right when COVID started, and I couldn't fly back to the United States to see him. It was a very like weird experience of like not being able to support the people who you love most and be there with them. And kind of what snapped me out of it is he started to talk one day on the phone about his legacy, and like he wished he had written down more of his stories for me and my two brothers. And he kind of just encouraged me is like I'm going to start my memoir for you guys while I'm going through this as a way to pass the days, and I want you to keep going. So those three things combined really got a fire under me for it, and I think it will motivate me for a long time to come. And for your second question of the overall theme, there's two big ones for me. Like the first one is that you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make a meaningful impact on others. There's a lot of ways to go from A to B. For me, it came with a little bit of age. I had to like look back and see like how my dots were connecting, and those are the people around me. The second thing is, even though the subtitle of the book is 12 principles, like, and they're my principles, the motivation of the book is to inspire others to make their own set of principles. Everything in the book, like it has my name on it, but that book is a reflection of the good people in the world who took a chance on me, who taught me something. They left a trail for me to lead. And I adapted what they had taught me to my own set of principles. And that's the motivation of the book, is just to get curious about how you best operate, what your strengths are, what lights you up, and design your life around that.
Yeah, that's great because that's what this show's all about. What are your strengths? What lights you up? And throughout your book, you just have some great strategies, to connect with other people, to have confidence in what you're doing. And yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to get deeper into those.
Thanks.
So what are some strengths that the quiet or the introverted can do? What qualities do they bring that they can leverage in their careers?
I always think that the most valuable people first take the time to understand what other people value. And like a lot of shy, extroverted, like are introverted, reserved, quiet, they sit back and kind of absorb. They observe, they listen, they're curious of other people, they're strategic thinkers. They sit back and they take the time to actually sit and think. And right now, today's world is very much the opposite of that. And the people, like, if you want to stand out, like a smart way to do it is just watch what everyone else is doing and do the opposite, right? And just the observation skill, like a lot of us like to take notes or like some form of art in some kind or collection process of how we're processing the world and the people around us. Those skills, I think, are the skills. For me, just the thing of observation, I don't want to harp on that too much, is just the sitting back process and observing the people around you and taking your time. Like we're allowed to move slowly. Taking like the right steps slowly gets you to where you need to go eventually. So I think we can beat ourselves up a lot for not being as vocal. But as you get older too, it's always like the CEO types always say that the quiet ones are the most dangerous ones in the room. And it is true. Like, what's that person thinking? Why are they taking notes? What are they writing down? It's kind of mysterious.
Yeah, there's many different strengths. Like not all introverts are alike. But what you just described, I think, is common for all introverts. We are deep thinkers and observers, and that's so needed. We need to look at how are things going? Where can we make things better? And it's those thoughts that are different that make the world a better place. It's new ideas that help make things better. And so, yeah. And that was something I figured out. It's like, oh, quiet and strong. The quiet part just means I'm thinking. And I figured out as confident as I become, I'm never gonna I'm never gonna speak as much as my extroverted friend is. You know, I'm gonna speak plenty, but there's always gonna be time where I am thinking, and that's my natural state. So that's awesome.
That just reminded me of the strength of thinking before you speak. It is just massive today, and it is of taking the time. For me, writing, it's very interesting. I still stutter some today. It's like I'm very cool with it though. It's just kind of like my wife, she thinks it's cute. But I was still stuttering pretty badly until I started to write. And like it just helped me to organize the thoughts in my head. And now on shows like this, like or giving a class, it's like I know what I'm going to say because I've already written it and taken the time just to kind of sit with that and sit with those thoughts. How, like, if you have to give an interview, writing out your answers first, like thinking through how are you going to respond, just that gives you a leg up.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's another skill that we have. We're often better in writing than speaking, but the writing really clarifies for us, who we are and clarifies ideas. I think that's when it really became clear for me is I started blogging about 10 years ago about introversion, and that really just solidified like my thoughts, and now I can speak about it freely and I don't have to give it much thought. I joke that I could talk about introversion for hours.
Like it's funny that the back to your point of like knowing what you're going to say is very like I look back now and I wrote about things that like what are my values, what do I want to do with my life. I waited until I was 38. And looking back, it's kind of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's like I was moving fast when just because I thought I had to. But once I actually embraced who I was, like, and actually sat down and thought about these things and started to write, that's when the clarity came. Like, and now I can talk about any topic, like similar to you. If we were together in a room for 8 hours, my bet is the two of us would talk for 8 hours straight.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've had some good conversations so far, so absolutely. In your book, you talk about choosing comfort over confidence. What does that mean?
So my upbringing was very much a confident, fake it until you make it. And that just didn't work for me at all. And comfort, what I realized with my first manager at the sales job is like he made me feel comfortable. Like he even actually said I have it in the book about like, hey, like most people aren't going to last long if they're not comfortable at work. Like get yourself comfortable. So that's the first thing. And like it's a two-way street. Is like what are the conditions for me to be comfortable? And what are the conditions that I can help the person I'm speaking with to be at ease? And for me to be comfortable, I generally like I have my own like it's like I'm not just going to approach 50 people a day and start a conversation. Like that's not my style at all. It's more strategic of like, hey, that person I'm curious about. Generally with conversations online, like if I'm reading someone for a while, that helps me to get comfortable just because I know their backstory a bit. So if I have to start a conversation with them, I know which directions to take it. But I think my real strength is making other people feel comfortable around me just because I didn't like it's like the obstacle is the way thing, right? Like I grew up not feeling comfortable in conversations and I hated the feeling. And so my goal, I think unconsciously just became to make other people feel as comfortable as possible. And over the years, I've figured out ways to make that happen. And just being approachable is one thing. But one tip that really, like, it's a quirky tip that Robin Dreeke, he was the former head, like, I'm going to butcher his title just because it's long. He was the former head of counterintelligence at the FBI's behavioral analysis program. Like, I actually think that's right. Like, even though it's 10
Okay.
words.
Sounds good.
He has a book entitled It's Not All About Me. And in that, he's got this one great sentence where he says that if you want to make, like, when you're approaching somebody, their guard's going up. Like, who is this person? They dangerous? Is it a threat? And he said that the key to a great first conversation is to let people know that you're not going to be taking up much of their time. So what he means by that is going at, like, if I started a conversation with somebody on the street or like a bar or a restaurant, it's like, hey, I have to grab my kids in 5 minutes, but I'm curious about. Hey, I have to meet my wife in 7 minutes, whatever it is. But I'm interested. I got to run to a meeting, but your book caught my eye. What these things do is like it's almost a sense of relief that this stranger who just came up to me like isn't going to waste all of my day. Like, and what I found is they bring a lot more energy to it. Like, oh, hey, it's really good to meet you. Like, instead of like being a bit hesitant. For me to get comfortable, like speaking to a lot of people, like it's those quick wins, those high energy conversation. Like it doesn't have to be high energy or fast paced, but just a positive energy conversation of a quick hit of a question about one thing. That's just a way that makes me comfortable, and the person on the other end also.
Yeah. And I can't help but think I think sometimes maybe the introverted or quiet person, we don't want to get dragged into long conversations. If they're a deep conversation, great, but we definitely don't want to get dragged into endless small talk. And that I think that is a fear that we have. And so I like that approach.
It's interesting. Like I haven't seen it anywhere else, and that like the first time I saw it, is like that is just the most genius thing I've ever heard. Just because I don't want to talk for an extended amount of time, the person
Yeah.
who I'm speaking with, maybe they're shy also. Like we have these like notions of like we think we know the person in front of us if they're tall and handsome and in a suit. We have no idea. So I just think it's one of those things with like where it's a first like for me a first impression. The goal of a first impression is to earn a second conversation. Like that's it. I used to put a lot of pressure on to perform or something and have a script. The reality is like, do you give off a good feeling? Like if that's quick, great. Like like meet up with them again. It's really like the thing works like charm too. It's like it's just a fun way to get to know people quickly. Ask a quick question, get out. If it's not going well, perfect. You have an excuse. Like you got to grab your kids. So very low stakes.
Yeah. So what other ways, I mean, Throughout your book, you write about other ways to have confidence and act with boldness. Tell us a little more about that.
So the boldness thing, like I have to do things for my job that I'm petrified at times and downright scared in others. Like I have to get in front of groups at university to give talks at times. I have to give interviews. And one tool that has really helped me out is called Triple A. It's called Acknowledge, Accept, Ask. And a client of mine, I helped her write a book maybe 5 years ago called The Self-Care Mindset. And the framework immediately stood out to me. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so if you're scared, like if you're scared to give a presentation, like acknowledge that the date's coming up, kind of accept how you're feeling. Like, and to have nerves is human. Like it's kind of like if you're not like a little nervous, like you probably don't care enough. Then to ask yourself, what do I need so I can feel a little more confident, a little more in control? Like I actually have those three like pinned on my office wall, like with the question, what do I need so that I can ... And just that simple question of like, if I have to give a presentation, like it could be that the thing I need is to just review the strong parts of the presentation to get some confidence again. It could be to call a friend and walk through it with them. It could be to take a break for a day, but just physically sitting down and asking, it's like, what do I need to push through this? Like, this means a great deal to me. Yeah, it just slows you down enough. Like in the work, like in speaking of just pausing, like what is my body sending me? What are the feelings? What are the emotions? Like, and kind of sitting with it, like, and asking, what do you need to move forward? The other thing I have is called a holy shit jar that I don't have, but like just me being here today, it means I'm brave, right? Like anybody who's alive today has gone through adversity, has gone through challenges. So kind of like anytime I do anything that surprises me or I'm proud of is like, I'll make a quick note now, like, and I'll throw it in my holy shit jar as a reminder of that I am being brave already. And that those two exercises combined are kind of my go-tos. Acknowledging I'm human, like what do I need to face tomorrow? And keeping track of the things I'm proud of. Just because it's so easy to like going back to the story in my head for years and years and years was often negative. If I screwed up a presentation, that's the memory that came to my head as soon as I heard presentation. If I screwed up an interview, same thing. And keeping track of the good I'm doing help to switch that self-talk.
You make physical notes to throw in the jar?
Yeah. Like we have one for our kids too, like a family one too, of like a whole, yeah, like here in Spain, swearing isn't as bad as it is in the US.
Okay.
So that the kids would like something they like, we'll switch that to like a cool thing each day, a cool thing that they learned or experienced. But for me, it's more like, holy shit, I did that thing. I think of myself like at times as weak and scared and all these things. And then these reminders are like, hey, I'm doing, it's like I'm speaking in front of groups. I'm doing things really outside of my comfort zone. So I'm doing good. And I'm living, like the things that I don't like doing generally make me feel the most alive. It's kind of a bad addiction. It's like, I'm not going to jump off a cliff, but me getting in front of a group is the equivalent for some people of jumping off of a cliff. Like, and to find strength in the stuff I've already done.
Yeah, I think you made a couple really good points that go together. And that's something that's really helped me. It's like, I'm not perfect, but nobody is, you know? And then really remembering your accomplishments, really keeping track of those. And I think that's a big boost of confidence, those things together for me anyway.
Yeah. And I think Warren Buffett said, he was talking about finance, but he said something like 12 investment decisions had made all the difference in his career. So he made millions of investments or decisions, but the 12, yeah, he focuses on those 12. And that's what I try and do in terms of like the things I've done in my life is to focus on the good. Like, and I do think that does come with some age and experience, like meeting my wife for one thing. Like she thought it was cute. I stuttered and I was giving a presentation at a government thing and I had moved to Spain as an illegal immigrant. And I talked to God, like I got the presentation gig And to enter the building, I had to use a passport of an Irish guy who kind of looked like me and kind of didn't. And I like look back on those things, and it's like that's what I want to remember, not the times I screwed up a presentation, not that like I met my wife by doing something hard, like, and she thought it was cute, like, and that's enough. That win right there defines most of my life.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like moving to Spain, like I'm naive. Like I didn't realize that like Americans just can't do whatever they want in any other country. And after 90 days, it was like your visa's up, kid. And I was like, what? Like this means I gotta go home? So I worked under the table for about a year and a half, just cash jobs, and I had to knock on doors and stuff. Like, and it was a really great experience to get, you know, just to get a hunger back and to go after the things I wanted to do. But it was a great, yeah, like looking back at that year and a half was probably like the best time of my life. Is like I had to make it. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And then in your book, you also talk a lot about how you network, and I thought it was very helpful. Tell us about that. What's your networking strategies?
So my networking strategies is very much a one-on-one technique. Networking events, I've done them. I've worked with startup boot camps. I've had to do the the song the song and dance. I thrive best going at people one-on-one. And in terms of my writing, for example, so I started to write 7 or 8 years ago, and about a year into it, I was like, it was kind of bored. It was like I'm at home alone all day. This can't be the only way to do this. And I began a habit of for every article I wrote. So each week I wrote an article, and each week I had to reach out to someone else who was doing some work I admired, requesting them like a chance to get on a call with them. And what that did, if I have a week, like, and there's somebody who's writing articles on like a similar topic or a completely opposite topic, and find them fascinating, is like I would kind of track notes of the things that they believe, likes, hobbies. So when I reached out to them, it really wasn't a cold message. It's like it was very apparent I was curious in them. And I think if you follow it, like it's easy to kind of like look at the people above you and be like, I want to be that person. I need to get to know that person. When sometimes an easier way is just to start with the people around you or even a touch below in their career to get some motivation going, some momentum going. And one really smart thing I did is I just started to reach out to people who had said that they were shy in their writing. And it was just kind of an of it, like looking back now is like, what, like this person's writing a similar lane. They're shy. My articles are about shyness also. Like it's kind of clear that we we have a connection. And I didn't have to go at them hard, like just because I wouldn't like a hard sell message. But over time I developed like a like kind of kind of a framework of sending out emails that got responses. And I never would have thought that email would be my go-to tool. But essentially, like most things I start are via email just because it's like people's emails are open all day. Some people hate them, but at the same time, most emails like are either trying to get your time or money. And what I would do for every first email was just a thank you message. Thanks to you doing X, I've been able to accomplish Y or view Y in a different lens. And I would just keep it really light, just showing that I was curious in them. I'd been following along. Like in those emails would usually net a response. That response would kind of open up the door to go for an ask. But doing it at my own pace, like I had a challenge of one person a week, but that's not a lot. Like is like I do the same thing. I read a like instead of scrolling on social media, I pick one person from history, like a week who I'm interested in. Is like, and I'll just watch books and videos on them for a week. And you learn a lot in that time, like even if it's like a couple hours total. So like I very much felt confident reaching out to people because I'd done my homework on them, like, and they could feel that I was interested also.
Yeah, and that's so important because I do get so many emails that are people are looking to sell something and they have no idea what I'm even doing, you know. It's you have to show the interest and that's key, you know.
Yeah, too. And it's the thing of like if you have an email that says thank you in the subject line, you're gonna read it. Like, and if it's kind of a lightweight thing to start, like not like just not even asking for anything, maybe you don't remember the person's full name, but if you're pinged back at some point, like it's going to spark a memory. I try to there's a rule in marketing called the rule of seven that someone like needs to be exposed to a message 7 times before it sticks. So if you're sending if you want to get on the radar of somebody you admire in your field, leaving a comment on a social media post is a good start. Like just these small things, sending a thank you email, a comment on a blog post or a video that they share. Like all of those things stack up. Like, and you don't like when it's like it comes time for an ask, it's kind of the next logical step in the relationship. So it's not a, is like I like to go slow. If once a week sounds a lot for a lot of people, like pick one person a month who you'd like to get to know. There there's no clock on this, but if you do that for 2 years, it's 25 people who half of which my bet is you'll make a connection with. And in my book, I have a thing of like if you can get together a group of shy people, like you can collectively make noise together. So like you don't have to have a lot of people in your corner. I've talked with a lot of people. I have 10 really great friends in this sector now, but it is fun to try and, it's like, how would you like to be approached from someone if you were in X position? And generally it's not the hard pushes. Like it's just the thoughtfulness, the consistency in showing up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it's funny. Like someone might think a group of 10 shy people might not have a lot to say, but there's a myth right there. As we talked about, we're deep thinkers. So we got a lot to say, just
Yeah.
gotta,
Like, yeah. And the small talk, usually you run through that pretty quick. So it is
yeah.
like you have the most meaningful conversations with, like it doesn't have to be a group of extroverts at all.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I've learned to make small talk, but it's really usually the gateway to get into the deep conversations I want to have. And once you have the small talk, or maybe sometimes with some people you could just skip it and get to those great conversations. And so anyway,
Yeah.
and you get the what you think is the quiet person talking, and you might not be able to get them to stop talking.
That's the goal, right? Like in my
Yeah.
book, they're a conversation starter. I don't have a ton of them in there, but a client of mine, Kim Dabbs is her name, and she wrote a beautiful book called You Belong Here. And she asked people, where do you call home? So it's just a flip of like, where are you from? But speaking of home, it's a place of comfort. So that opens the door for her to talk about like what interests, like what it is about that place that brings out the best of you. Could be that someone's living in a new city, like and home is Alabama. Like there's a ton of follow up questions to get to the heart of why they just moved to a new city. What do they miss? Like you can get that question opens up meaningful conversations really, really quickly.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's like I know many people, that quiet or introverted are they don't know how to do that sometimes. But there's so many things you can learn about getting the conversation going and getting to those deep conversations that you want to have.
Yep. Like that's the like, and it's just the curiosity, like in starting a conversation like with somebody. Kim Kim's question's great, but generally is like I try and go like really super easy. Like, how are you doing? I have a thing in the book too about like make a comment on the weather. It's like everyone's like, don't talk about the weather. It's like everybody has an opinion on it. Like, and you don't think someone's stupid at the end. Like, if you have a connection, like you're not going to disregard that person just because they said it's cloudy. So it's just kind of like all of those first sentences, phrases, questions, like are just to let people kind of chill out, get a read on you. So for me, I overestimated how much I need to blow somebody's socks off in a conversation. Like, the reality is like, "Hi, how are you?" Like in Spain, that's all people say. There's not lists of here's a question to ask someone right away. It's just, "Hey, what's up?" That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point. Like, I think I think for someone that's shy, often we are putting too much pressure on ourselves to blow someone's socks off, as you said. And it's not needed. You know, it's that's funny.
Going back, I wish I could rename the book something like "Everything I Learned as a Kid Was Wrong." Like something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you don't have
So
to listen to everybody. Yeah.
so I know storytelling's really important to you. Just and that can also be part of making connections and things. Tell us a little bit more about that. How can we tell effective stories? How can we use it to make connections?
So the storytelling thing is I got into it. I was writing, like I started to write, and like a lot of writers, I was doing listicle thing. Like, and I started to get traction from the listicles. And a friend of mine, he emailed me like, "All right, it's clear that you can write a listicle. Go learn a new skill." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" It's like I'm earning a living as a writer now, you know. It's like, but the more I thought about it, like the more his advice of like change before you have to made a lot of sense. And like most people, I love stories as a kid, and I just kind of blocked it out. You know, like growing up, the world like has changed in the last like the last decade. But me starting out in my career is like we didn't have things like storytelling coaches, like in this kind of stuff. I it just wasn't in that world at all, and I got obsessed with the art of telling a story. Like, and like it's the world's strongest bridge. It's the human connector. Like, and my obsession, I don't think will ever die for it. And what I like to do, my stories is I'm pretty open. Like my book isn't how I became like a billionaire. It's like I took something I was bad at, and today I'm less bad at it. It's like I'm not necessarily an expert like in X, Y, and Z. It's more like here are the steps that got me out of being horrible. And generally, those stories, like I'm being open in my being vulnerable and open. I generally write about my feelings, scared, embarrassed, and but a decent amount of people, when I started to write, kind of warned me that I'm ruining my career with this, and the opposite has happened. So I've done collaborations with the former chief of HR at Apple, and I got asked to teach a leadership here in Barcelona. All of it's from the storytelling angle. And just to get started with your own stories, like it sounds like a big thing. It's like, what's my story? It's like, that's too big of a question to start. Like, we generally have two types of stories. It's like your cornerstone stories, like how you, like your X to Y stories that take people on like a transformation from shy to confident, from worthless to worthwhile, poor to rich. And we generally have a couple of those. For me, it's I grew up shy and stuttering, and now I'm a communication coach. I lost all of my money in Central America. I found happiness broke in Spain. I was scared to have a family. Now, like my favorite thing in the world is to be a father. So those are like really big keys, like themes. But what often connects more, like you can't go around saying those stories every day. Like people are going to be like, "Yeah, I heard that yesterday." So there's cornerstone, then there's circadian stories, just to keep with a C theme. That's your daily experience, 24-hour cycles. And for my cornerstone stories, like the easiest thing is we hear about this in therapies, creative workshops, is a timeline of your life exercise of start at X, like when you were born, go to today, and you got a piece of paper. It's turned horizontal. You write down all of your big life moments from career, relationships, moving, travel, whatever impacted you, just to get the notes going. And what I do after that, like, is I'll niche down a timeline of your life exercise for the times I felt embarrassed, the times I felt shame, the times I felt joyful and extremely happy. So I have like different buckets, like a big bucket of my big life things, and then smaller subsections of different emotions. Just keeping track of that, like you can take an hour or two, and you'd be surprised at how many experiences, like our feelings, kind of arise just from sitting down for an hour or two. And the stories are going to start to get, like, you'll start to see themes. For this circadian stories, the 24-hour, like, my job is to notice the world. So I ask myself 5 questions at the end of each day, like clockwork. And like, it's one thing I learned, one thing I did poorly, one thing I'm proud of, one way that somebody helped me, and one thing I could have done better. Like one memory that popped into my head. Those are like really simple questions that you can write a sentence on. Like, and at the end of a month, you'll have 150 sentences to kind of play with, like ideas for sparks of stories. So, like, if it's something you learned, like, what's the story of not knowing it? How did you learn it? Who taught it to you? What did it mean to you? All of those things can make for a great story. So my collection process is just about everything. If I didn't have my collection process, there's no way I'd be able to share stories and stay online, basically, and have a book. Like, it's a collection like, if you speak with Ryan Holiday's a like super prolific writer. I think he's done 13 books in 13 years or something. He has a note card system that, like, literally he pieces together his books from his note card. So his daily action of doing that makes the big thing.
Yeah. And I will say you are a great storyteller because I have been reading your book. And this has been a great conversation today. So, Michael, tell us where we can find out more about you and your book that's coming out, Shy by Design.
So my website is michaelthompson.art, like ART. There are a lot of Michael Thompsons in the world. So, like, and I actually like the dot art one just because I view storytelling as an art, and like, in words as an art. I'm on LinkedIn, probably like the most active right now on LinkedIn, and my handle is mikethompsonblog.com. And I write on Medium regularly. Michael Thompson Substack. I just started a Substack with the same name as the book, Shy by Design. Those are the only places I'm really active. Like, I like long form, like Substack and Medium, it's more long form. LinkedIn, I'm usually sharing longer things instead of just, fast quotes. So if you're listening and you want to say hi, please, like, the reason I write is to meet people. So please do drop me a line.
All right. Thanks again for the great conversation and your great story, Michael.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to further connecting with you. Reach out at david@quietandstrong.com or check out the quietandstrong.com website, which includes blog posts and links to social media channels. Send me topics or guests you would like to see on the show. If you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's now a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This free assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code, and you can also have the option of purchasing the full report if you'd like to learn more. I'll add a link to the show notes. So many great things about being an introvert, and we need those to be understood. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong.